Welcome to Around the Drafting Table, where we explore the fascinating world of architecture through engaging conversations with Utah's leading experts. I'm architect Kory Cox, your host and guide on this journey. In each episode, we'll delve into the essential topics that shape your vision, from understanding design principles to navigating the construction process. Whether you're dreaming of your first custom home, planning a renovation, or embarking on your mountain getaway project, our discussions will empower you with knowledge and insights. We'll speak with industry experts who will share real-life stories, answer your burning questions, and ensure that you feel confident every step of the way. So grab a seat at the table, and let's start building your dream together. Join us for Around the Drafting Table, where ideas take shape and visions become reality. Welcome to Around the Drafting Table, where we talk about topics that are top of mind for homeowners looking to design a new space. Joining us today, we have Margot Delinga, an acoustician with Spectrum Engineers. She specializes in shaping sound in a space. Margot, thank you for joining us today.
My honor.
Jumping straight in then, please tell everyone what an acoustician does and why owners should think about including you on their design team.
All right. Acoustics is the science of studying sound. So it is a science, but it also is an art. And I want to give you an example of this. Sound, I could say sound is something that I hear when I'm mowing my lawn. When I hear a noise, I can call noise what I hear when my neighbor's mowing his lawn. But music is when my neighbor's mowing my lawn. So there is
very emotional just in the perception of different sounds.
Yeah, there is a good portion of subjectivity here that we need to be on the same page so that we can shape the sound the way that you want it to be. So you can have your music in your project, right? So acoustician, then our job is to collaborate with the architectural design team. So we can understand how each one of the areas will be used and how we can shape the sound in there internally and blocking any undesired noise from other sources. And an acoustician is an expert, as a person that has gone through several years of formal education for this and many years of practice in the profession so that we can really support the goals for each client.
Perfect. So why is sound control important in home design? Shouldn't a standard wall assembly block a certain amount of noise, or, how important is the thickness of a wall? That's sort of the common parlance, right?
It is a good question. A lot of times people have a misconception that because I'm building my project up to code, a code minimum, it'll be okay. But not for acoustics typically. Code minimum is not built to fulfill most people's expectations for sound attenuation between rooms.
Right.
And especially for interior acoustics. And I want to tell you an interesting example about a client that we had years ago. They had built this huge, beautiful house. And it had an natatorium, an indoor swimming pool with waterfall and some hot tubs and a bar, and it had area for entertaining. And this family was really looking forward to having larger groups of people there.
Sounds very nice. I'd like an invite.
Yes, I know. It was gorgeous, gorgeous, gorgeous. I was so excited to go see it. Everything in this house was beautiful. And we went there, but nobody liked to be there. Nobody liked the place because it was just so noisy. So people could not understand each other, could not have normal conversations.
Just echoing in the space, high reverberation.
Exactly. Yeah. Sound would bounce back between all the walls and the ceiling and the water, and it was very uncomfortable, actually. So yeah, sound control within the space and between spaces are both extremely important for the acoustics on a project.
Okay, so that's an example where some absorption material would have helped shape the sound within that space to make it more comfortable for larger groups. Where
Exactly.
oftentimes people talk about, keeping sound from one space from transitioning to another space, like
Exactly.
the transmission of sound, also very important. But those two essential components, would you say those two are like the two things that you deal with?
Yeah. We call the reverberation and the shaping of the sound within a room.
Hmm.
We call that interior acoustics. And then blocking sound from one area to the other, we call that acoustic separation. So those are the two main emphasis that we focus on.
Okay. What are common issues that you see homeowners face with sound, and how can they be avoided?
Well, I think we just mentioned the two common issues, the reverberation, in
Hmm.
interior acoustics, and the acoustic separation when it's overlooked, when people rely on minimum code or whatever the builder is used to building, or, when people
Right.
don't put the extra attention to that. So, yeah, excessive noise. When I think about acoustic separation, we think about a person using a room and another person using another room with different requirements for sound levels.
Hmm.
But it's also, we need to look at equipment sound levels. We need to see how close a person is to a neighbor's house, or traffic noise sometimes, you
Right.
know,
Yep.
even outdoor amenities like a pickleball court or a tennis court, things like that. So those are also good examples of applications of sound acoustic separation. And
Okay.
uh, and if that is talked about in the beginning of construction, when we are still looking at the wall types and the ceiling
Hmm.
types, then we can design them to have that acoustic separation built into the design, and we don't have to add other acoustic materials or other resources after the walls are up and people start noticing, oh, we have a problem.
Okay. Yeah, and a wall type and a ceiling type, that's just the combination of materials used to construct a wall.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
that dovetails really nicely actually into our next question. How do building materials influence sound quality and acoustics in a home?
All right. So the materials, acoustical materials are usually, well, they're always designed for a specific purpose.
Hmm.
So there are acoustical materials that are designed to absorb the sound, to control the reverberation. So
Hmm.
sound will be here, will be absorbed instead of bouncing back and adding to the noisiness of the place.
Right.
And so we would use those materials inside a room in a specific places and in specific areas to shape the sound for that use. We'll have more reverberation for music, less reverberation for talking, things like that. The
So
other
how do
type,
you how do you balance those two aspects, in a space like in general for a home? If someone wants to enjoy good music but also have um, high intelligibility for speech.
so that's where the placement of this acoustical treatment is key.
Hmm.
With if we have a sitting area where people will have conversations with each other, that's something that we can tailor in that space. But if you have a grand piano on the other side, if you want some live music going on there, we would want a larger volume, and we want some other surfaces in that space to reflect that sound, so that will be enveloping everybody
Yeah.
that's listening. So yeah.
So what are some common materials then that have high reflectivity and are bad, or maybe bad is the wrong word, um,
It's just,
but make
it's
it
all
difficult to
about
control that sound?
where you place it, right? So glass reflects the
Hmm.
sound glazing,
Right.
large panes of windows, um, concrete or a normal gypsum board wall,
Hmm.
other things like that. They're just they're not porous, they're very
Right.
reflective, and they will reinforce the sound, which
So
is a good
any
thing for some,
smooth, hard surface, right?
yeah, hard surface. Yeah, they will reinforce the sound, and depending on where they are and their angles, that's a good thing. And that natatorium, that was a bad thing. So yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So then part of that, what role do windows and doors play in sound control? We talked about how, large panes of windows inside a space can lead to reverberation, but they have other characteristics as well, right?
Of course. So when we're talking about acoustic separation from outdoor noise, for example,
Hmm.
we will design the exterior wall to have a specific amount of sound attenuation.
Yep.
And walls are pretty good at that. It's not that hard to find a wall that will actually offer you, just knowing a key components of how to put the wall together
Hmm.
will be there with normal construction materials, with nothing ordinary. But when we have glazing, when we have windows and doors, they will become the weakest link in that partition.
Right.
And so we will need to look at the composite sound attenuation of the whole entire area of wall and glazing and doors.
Hmm.
So if we have a large area of glazing or doors, we might need to update that glazing to some acoustic sound rated windows and have specific seals on doors and things like that to better match that sound rating that we need to
Yeah.
reach that goal. Yeah,
And that's something that we can think about with outside noise coming in through the exterior walls, but also in interior walls of the home and the doors that separate maybe bedrooms from an entertaining space, right?
exactly. And clever design, we want to talk about this in the very beginning because if you have a party room and a private bedroom here that needs
Hmm.
very different sound levels, maybe we want to push that bedroom a little bit further in the very
Right.
beginning of the process, right? But if there are two simultaneous uses with different sound level requirements, we will be talking about a sound rated wall, even in the interior of the home.
Hmm.
And again, a door with very good seals and good amount of mass, and maybe a little bit of a convoluted entrance to the bedroom. So have a little bit more of a gap for the sound to be absorbed on the way there. So
Hmm.
those things, again, in the initial stages of design, those are ways to incorporate acoustics without having to do anything much different than would already be expected in a normal planning meeting,
Hmm.
designing the building.
So in that case where you do have like an entertaining space right next to a bedroom, and let's say, just given the constraints of the floor plan, it's difficult to move them away from each other. Um, is it an effective strategy to do like, a wall of bookcases or something on one side or both sides of the wall? Or is it really come down to the wall materials itself?
It comes down on how the partition is put together, the installation of the materials.
Hmm.
That's when an inch of an air gap there in between the sides of the wall will be much more effective than a whole bookshelf in the wall.
Yeah.
So those are things that we can help coordinate.
Yeah. And an air gap does get into pretty technical discussion, which is something, I'm happy to sort of go over that with the client in a more visual medium, but it's difficult maybe to
Yeah.
talk about in this format.
Hmm.
But it's a strategy that we use all the time, incorporating air gaps here and there.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
so what does an air gap do? What is the purpose of introducing something like that?
So when a wall will have a gypsum board panel one side, gypsum board the other side typically, right?
Hmm.
Then framing in between. So sound is a mechanical wave. So when the sound vibrates this part, and it's a micro vibration, you cannot
Hmm.
see it. But
Right.
well, you can see if you have enough bass, but we're not talking about
Very low frequency sound, right?
exactly. Sometimes you can feel it, but those micro vibrations in the side, if we have rigid connections between the two sides, uh, both of them are going to vibrate, and then the sound will go to the other side of the wall. So when
Okay.
you have an air gap or something that is not allowing that vibration to go, the sound will be here, and it will be in a way almost absorbed almost. It will be blocked from passing through the other side of the partition.
Okay. So it's just about interrupting that vibration from passing through the wall sort of without anything to break it.
Exactly. And for sound studios and places that have extreme needs for that, we almost need to build a room within a room,
Hmm.
detach everything, the floor, the ceiling, everything. So
Yeah.
those are methods for more extreme cases of acoustic separation. But
Yeah.
yeah, it's done. Yes.
Yeah. I mean, but it's definitely good news for listeners to our discussion today. If they want to have a recording studio in their home, we can help them
Yeah.
do it.
Definitely.
Okay. What new technologies and materials are currently changing the field of home acoustics?
This is such an exciting field. And one misconception I wanted to also bring up is that people would assume that for acoustical treatments to be inserted in a home, it would disrupt the design. And that's what
Hmm.
I wanted to share with you. I wanted to share some examples of manufacturers and products that are available, like this one. This is a fireplace and it has wood planks around. What you don't see is that the wood planks are actually acoustical panels.
Hmm.
They can be made with a wood veneer and micro perforations, and they can mimic wood. Here's a private residence with a theater. Again, the acoustical treatment is there, but you can't tell.
Right. And
It's
again, I'm waiting for an invite for this one.
I
That's a
know.
spectacular space.
That is beautiful. Yes. There's another one. Different types of decorate of interior design, of course. It
Hmm.
can be adaptable, but the whole ceiling can be acoustically absorptive or an entire wall here, and you can't tell. So
So in
again,
this space, the example is just the ceiling. You think the walls and everything else is just more standard building materials?
from what I understand, the ceiling is all acoustically absorptive, and then
Hmm.
the walls are not, but the same look can be done with walls. Okay, you talked about new technologies. So this is an acoustical plaster. And if you zoom in, you can see there's some textures that are
Uh-huh.
available. So if you want to incorporate that in your design, and they're experimenting with different textures as well. So I'll have more of that if you want to see more of that.
Does the texture have any impact on the acoustical performance of the material,
No,
or is it really just an aesthetic choice?
aesthetic choice.
Okay.
And again, is so that the design is cohesive. Or if you want something different, let's get something different. There are lots of options.
Hmm.
Home in Park City, and here it's the ceiling and a beautiful, beautiful kitchen. Uh,
Hmm.
this is actually another kitchen. Well, those big areas that have the kitchen attached to everything else is a very open plan
Right.
type of
Very common
design.
in designs. Hmm.
Yes, and the ceiling, the wood in the ceiling, again, it's just the veneer. The wood is acoustical panels, and they are matching the rest of the wood in the design. And you can
Yeah.
go and zoom in, and it's very hard to tell any difference, even looking
Just
close.
looks like regular wood.
Yeah, wood planks, and those very, very popular lately in home designs. Um, Another one, where's acoustical? So this is basically the latest in that would be applicable here. It would be materials that actually look like reflective finishing
And so
materials.
this one kind of harkens back to your early story about, a very large entertaining space with a pool and hot tubs and things, and they didn't do anything with acoustics and how disappointed they were. But this is
Exactly.
a space where they went to that effort. And is
Yep.
is it all the ceiling again in this one?
Yes. And this one, yeah, it's the ceiling again. And usually ceiling or the higher portions of the walls are a more common application, but we've done it in walls as well, all the way down. It's just a matter of
Hmm.
what works for the design and for
So
the
is there a reason that you normally see it just in the top portion of the wall? Are there durability concerns as opposed to a regular gypsum board?
it will not be it's cleanable, but you might not accept bumps and bruises as well as a very in a kid bedroom, for example, in a place that
Hmm.
has a lot of movement,
Right.
in a library, or in a place that it won't have much abuse, sure, let's put it all the way down and it will be okay.
Yeah.
So it's just a matter of the use.
Yeah. And I think that what we're seeing amongst your examples here is it's very common to employ these materials across the entire ceiling plane
Yeah.
because that's up and away and out of reach. And so it's much safer.
Yes, yes.
But, to your point, if it's an area that's not going to face a lot of movement and we're not expecting a lot of use, we can still employ those materials all the way down to the floor.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah, it's good to have that variability. And, we were working on a project recently together that I think we found difficult to find very large flat spaces that were even available for material. There was so much glass in this space.
Yes,
Very
exactly.
little wall space was remaining. And so,
Yeah. Yeah.
okay. Um, what should homeowners consider when budgeting for acoustics in their project? How big of an impact can these materials have?
All right. Well, it will depend on how early we're involved. So there is the fee for the acoustical consultant
Uh-huh.
to be involved in design, and the earlier the better. So the earlier we are involved in the design, the more acoustics will be incorporated in the design with common materials, with the regular building materials. And
Yeah.
yes, you may need to have some acoustical plaster and some other finishes, and depending on the uses and how much need there is, that will be the cost of those materials and installation. But the most cost-effective way to approach acoustics is from the very beginning of the design.
Mhm. So when you say early in the design, are you saying like all the way, way up front where we don't even really have a floor plan yet? And so maybe there's an initial conversation between yourself and the owner just talking about maybe what they want to accomplish. And so as we're putting the floor plan together, we can be more sensitive to, oh, well, here's our entertaining space and here's our bedrooms. Let's create some separation between them.
Exactly. And that's something that we can help with, because you might not even be aware of your acoustical needs, right? But we can ask you questions as, do you have problems sleeping? Do you need a very quiet space to sleep?
Hmm.
Or do they have kids? And will they have their friends coming over?
Yeah.
Will you have guests with different schedules? Do we need to put them in different sides of the place? Do we have
Hmm.
um, home theater or indoor swimming pool?
Right.
We will, those what equipment will be there? How close to your neighbors? So those are questions that we can guide and help determine what the goals are for the project with acoustics.
Yeah. To your point on, having neighbors very close, is there a certain distance that once you reach it, it's basically a non-concern? Like if the neighbors are a few 100 feet away, 200 feet away, is it basically like, we're not going to worry about it anymore. It's nothing we need to design for, unless
Well,
they're very rowdy, maybe.
yeah, just if they like to do fireworks every night, this is all relative. There's some areas there, they have a lot more traffic noise, for
Hmm.
example, and that will drown a lot of noise that possibly could be coming from a neighbor. So it
Yeah.
all depends on the environmental noise levels in the area.
Hmm.
So Park City and Deer Valley, those areas there, we do a lot of work there, especially because of the low ambient noise levels. And so it's easier to hear everything else.
Yeah.
So that's something definitely to consider.
So you're saying that there's a difference in ambient noise levels between Park City, which is a more rural area, a lot of wilderness and mountains, versus like the cityscape.
Exactly. Yeah, the traffic, people walking and talking, trucks coming in.
Hmm.
Yeah, definitely, definitely.
Yeah,
So
I think that many of our listeners are probably familiar with just with the idea of noise pollution. And like when you're
mhm.
living in a heavy urban area, there's just like a low hum that
Yep.
occasionally, when there's no other sound around you, you'll sort of hear that. That's what you're talking about here, right?
Yeah. And we can be desensitized to that, after
Hmm.
living in a city for a long time, you don't realize
Hmm.
that all this noise is around. You get used to that. But
Right.
then it might be interesting for somebody that has a home in a place that's noisy like this and wants to get away from that noise. Wants to have a second home in a place that's more rural, like Park City, or another place that's farther from neighbors, and you can relax, and then suddenly you can hear the birds and you can hear the crickets and you can hear the floor creaking, and what's music and what's noise in there. Oh, we're going to talk about
Yeah,
that.
and the mountains here in northern Utah are the best place to seek that kind of solitude.
They are amazing, yes.
Okay. So I think that getting an acoustician in a home is not, the most common consultant to have on a project. So what are some common misconceptions that you encounter in regards to sound control and the work that you do?
Yeah, we talked about a couple of them, but there's one more that I wanted to bring up. If a material has sound, the word sound in the name, or acoustic in the name, a
Hmm.
lot of times we have clients come and ask, can I use this material to solve my acoustic problem?
Yeah.
And the answer is usually no, because each acoustical material is made specifically for an acoustic purpose. So the material that's a good sound absorber, it will be a very poor sound blocker. It will be porous,
Okay.
and sound is going to go through. It is not going to help in the other side of
Hmm.
the partition, and vice versa. Something that's a really good sound attenuation, sound blocker here, um, it's not going to absorb the sound. It will just usually reflect it back. So there's just a couple of examples. We see sound pads, acoustic insulation, things that are thrown around here and there for different uses, but it needs to be the right thickness, it needs to be
Hmm.
the right location, and the correct installation, because how it's installed will always also change the acoustical properties of the material.
Yeah. Do you see that sometimes acoustical problems can be solved as some simple things like adding rugs and furniture to a room? Does that have very much impact, or do we really have to drill down into the building materials to solve these issues during design?
It's a good question. One thing that we think about is decoration can change. If somebody puts
Hmm.
rugs or something, some textiles in the walls and things for that sound absorption, maybe the trends will change, the decoration will change, and then what? So if it's incorporated into the design of the walls, then it doesn't matter what you put in there, it will still be um, the music you were looking for,
Right.
the acoustics that it's intended to be.
So the choices of materials is a permanent choice.
Exactly. Yeah.
So you don't reintroduce the problem later just because you got rid of the rug because it got ruined because someone spilled wine on it or what have you.
Exactly. Yes.
Okay.
So it's a thing that if you include it in the design, then you don't have to think about it ever again.
Hmm.
And really, people usually notice the acoustics of a place if it's off, if it's too reverberant, or if it's too dead, or if you're bothered by the look of the acoustical panels.
Yeah.
So our goal is to not be thought of ever again, to be completely disappeared into the
Yeah.
design. So yeah,
This is something that I often refer to as hygiene factor. It's
there
like
you
no
go.
one no one cares unless something's wrong, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
No one will ever ask you if you brush your teeth, but if
No.
they can smell your breath, they're not going to want to be around.
Yeah.
And it's the same with sound design. So if you do your job really, really well, they're going to wonder if you did your job at all, right?
Exactly. And they will look forward to come to there,
Hmm.
They will look forward to use the space.
Okay. I think you've spoken a little bit about, you know, a space that did not go well, but do you have a success story to share where you came into a home, maybe one that was already built or one that you were helping on the design with that led to a really positive outcome?
Of course, I have a client that had a beautiful home, and a large portion of that home was set apart for a foundation that he was supporting. And he has an indoor gym with a custom built flooring and very, very high ceiling.
Hmm.
And it was beautiful, beautiful place. And youth would go there, and he had coaches, and they would play in teams. And it was a place that it was beautiful. It was to really build up their sense of worth, you know. And they go into the gym, and they would have trainers and people trying to do games and things. And it was really hard. You couldn't understand each other. People in the same team could not communicate. They tried to
Hmm.
do different games and different things. Again, too reverberant. So somebody in their team there decided that, oh, carpet is something absorptive. Let's put carpet on the walls. So they put carpet on all the walls up to about 5, 6 feet high.
Hmm.
And guess what happened?
Did that have any impact at all?
No, it didn't. And it's painful to see time and resources misguided like this
I'm
because
sure it was a significant investment for them, but
yes, and especially with the design and the look of everything else, they had to figure something that would work with it. And anyway, so I went there, did measurements, and we could narrow down the actual areas that needed acoustical absorption and how to put there. And it's night
yeah.
and day. It's something that they can really enjoy and use it for its intended purpose.
So reading between the lines a little bit, it sounds like there's specific actual calculations that you do to figure out where to put the sound material and where not to.
And that's the the science part of it. Yes, definitely. Yes.
So is there any advice that you would give to someone just starting the custom home journey beyond what we've already talked about, or anything else you'd like to add about the importance of acoustics in home design?
No, I think your questions were perfect. It was really nice talking to you, and I just wanted to emphasize that the earlier we can be involved, the more seamless the whole process will be. And our goal really is that you can look forward to come back home to enjoy your spaces and
Hmm.
enjoy music. So that's what you're here for.
Okay, perfect. I just want to say that sound is one of my favorite architectural characteristics. We spend so much time, thinking about how things are going to look on the exterior of the home, on the interior of the home, what the floor plan is, but it's the unseen factors sometimes that can really lead to either a very good or a very bad result in terms of how people feel in a space. And we can see that from some of the stories that we've talked about today. So I definitely encourage all our listeners on your next home project to contact an acoustician, get their input, and definitely contact Margot.
Yay.
Okay, with that, I think our time is up. Thank you for joining the conversation around the drafting table today. And until next time, get in touch with the Oxford Architects so that we can dream together. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Kory.